Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of viewports and sheet layers. In this screencast, I'm going to go into a few more ways that you can customize your sheet layers to make really good looking printed drawings. The first thing I want to do is create a sheet layer. We'll go up to the Layer tab, choose Sheet Layers, click New, keep it Sheet Layer 1, and I'll give it a title. I'll call this Presentation Drawing. Click OK. Notice now in the Layer tab that the sheet layers are above the gray line and the design layers are below the gray line. I'm going to go back to my design layer. And here's a top view of my Murphy bed. I want to choose a slightly different view, something that maybe shows off the design a little better. That looks a little good, a little bit better. I want to maybe swing this around to get a slightly better look, something like that. I'll go up to View, choose Create Viewport, give the viewport a name, call this Murphy Bed, and I'll call it the same, give it the drawing title, and make sure it's going to sheet layer 1 and click OK. There's my sheet layer. I'm not going to worry about rescaling it and changing stuff around until I get my other viewport on the page, and then I'll do all my editing at once. I'm going to go back now to design layer 2, and I want to just include a 2D front view of what the Murphy bed will look like when it's all closed. But I only want the Murphy bed. I don't want this chest of drawers over here. So I want to crop my viewport and just take a snapshot of part of the design layer page, not the whole thing. It's really easy to do. You can use any geometric shape from the basic tool set. I decide not to have any fill or any pen line because I don't like to see the crop. I just want to see the object. And go over here and I create a rectangle that will contain my object. Click, keeping the rectangle highlighted, I go back up to View, scroll down, Create Viewport, and say, yes, I do want the selected object to be used as the viewport's crop. I'll give it a name, Front View. I'll give the drawing title a name, Murphy Bed Front. Make sure it's going to sheet layer 1, and I'll click OK. I now have both my viewports on my sheet layer, but they don't look very good. They're too big, they're overlapping. So now I'm going to start editing. The first thing I'm going to do is going to change the scale. I'm going to reduce the scale to 3/4, and I'm going to do the same thing for the other viewport. I'll highlight that. And see, can I fit them both on the page? Doesn't look like I'm going to have to reduce that a little bit more. Reduce that back down to a half. That's a little better. Move them apart. And then I want to have a sheet border on my sheet layer. So I'm going to click on the sheet border tool, import it, click once, click twice. There's my sheet border. I'm going to go over and edit the border settings. I don't like to see any border, so I'm going to zero these out. I'm going to get rid of the vertical zones and the horizontal zones. Click OK. I do want a title block. I'll go over to the symbols window. I'm going to choose a simple title block. Click OK. And I'm going to reduce that in size, going over the title block scale factor. I'm going to reduce that in half. And lastly, I'm going to edit the title block and call this Basement Project. All right. So there's my basic setup for my sheet layer. Now I want to customize a little further. I want to actually add some dimensions. So the way you can edit a viewport is by double-clicking on the viewport, and this Edit Viewport window opens up. and you can choose to edit annotations, which are text and dimensions. You can choose to edit the crop if you want to increase the size or decrease the size of what you're looking at in the viewport. You can change the crop. You can go back to the design layer, and any changes you make in the design layer show up in the viewport. So the viewports are dynamic, which is really, really, really cool. So I'm going to edit the annotations because I want to add some dimensions. And notice how I'm now on this viewport annotation page over here, and here's viewport annotation. The other viewport and the sheet layer and all that is grayed out. I can just now edit the viewport. I'm going to go back and make sure my pen has a fill to it, and I'll pick up the constrain linear dimension tool, and I will add some dimensions. You can use snap loop in to make sure you're snapping to the correct point. You can choose the type of dimension standard if you haven't selected one already over in the object info palette, or you can do it up here in the dimension standard. I can add some dimensions as well. Snap loop there, snap loop there. And when I'm satisfied that I've put in all the annotations and they're done correctly, I can exit the viewport annotation window, and there's my viewport and the annotations. I can shift things around a little bit to get them back on the page. So you have a lot of flexibility in how you want to arrange these views. This viewport is still looking a little big to me, so I'm going to come back and scale it. That looks a little better. The next thing I want to do is create some drawing titles so that each view has a label. So again, I'll double click on the viewport, make sure I've clicked annotations again, click OK. I go back to the viewport annotation window. This time I'm going to scroll down a little farther in the toolsets palette and choose the drawing label tool. I'm going to bring it over, place it where I'd like it on my viewport, click once, click twice, and there's our drawing label. And notice it's got the name that I assigned to this drawing title when I created the viewport. So if you're careful and consistent in naming your viewports and drawing titles, you can automatically import that information in a pretty cool looking drawing label. You can change stuff around. You can change the bubble style to a round rectangle or a circle or none. I kind of like the round rectangle. You can draw a full width bubble if you want the whole thing enclosed. You can change the title text. You can choose a text style from the resource browser and apply a different text style to it. So you can customize these and get them looking pretty good. When you're happy with it, exit the viewport annotation. And the last thing I want to show you on this viewport is if we wanted to change the crop, we would choose crop, and you can see the reshape handles for the crop show up. You can still see the rest of the drawing, but only the image inside the crop is visible. If you're happy with the crop, exit that, and you're good to go. So I just have to tune up this one. So I highlight this one, double click. I want to add a drawing title to this one, so I'll click on the annotations, and I'll go over to my drawing label, drag it over, click once, click twice, and here's my drawing title. If I want to give it a different name, maybe I'll call it a 3D. You can edit the name that you gave it when you created it. So if you forgot to name the viewport when you created it, it's okay. You can come back to the object info palette and change the drawing title. Click OK. Exit, and then anytime you see this red and white border, it means you need to update because you've made some change to the viewport. And there we go. There's our 3D view. We can move these around, get them looking pretty good. Whatever works for you, whatever you think looks nice on the table. The last thing I want to do in Viewports is I want to get a better resolution when I print for the 3D. The edges are kind of raggedy. Um, and the way we can do that is by increasing the resolution of the whole sheet layer. We go up to the Layer tab, Sheet Layers, select our sheet layer. We only have one. Click Edit. And the DPI is only 72. That's the default. It's pretty low resolution, but it doesn't take up a whole lot of storage space. So there's no sense having your on-screen resolution look any higher than that. But when we print, we want our drawing to look much sharper than that. So I'll change that to 300. Click OK. Click OK. You see we get the red and white border again, which means we need to update. So I'll select the viewport. Click Update. And there's our image, looking much better. So there you go, fairly fast and easy to create a very good looking drawing.